am live. Today is when I share my Thursday at 3. What if? What if? Yes, I dashed in the door for. That's why I'm a few minutes late. That's what happens when appointments and traffic take over your life. And I'm not sure if the live was really in place in time. Mm. This is number 11 of these Thursday at 3. What if? What if surrender isn't passive? Yeah. I'm Sandra Allen Lovelace, and I'm a coach. Actually, I've been pondering this a lot, and lately I'm realizing that I'm a be still and know coach. We'll flesh that out as time unfolds. But here I am today to talk to you about surrender. And surrender for Christians is or can be a tricky topic. Some people think the word submit means surrender, which it doesn't. Submit includes making a decision. And other people think surrender means waving a white flag. If you're an American and you've ever seen any old westerns, that's what wagon trains did when they wanted to give up to the attacking whatever they were. They waved a white flag. I give up, I'm done. And they laid down their guns and they were done. That's not a very good illustration of surrender, because there is an active point to surrender. Hello and welcome. Come on in. I am not seeing any comments yet, but if you want to put a comment, that would be great. I'm talking about surrender today, and really bringing up or taking a second look at this idea that surrender is something that's passive. It actually is not. Surrender is an extremely active choice, direction, decision, activity, maybe. Although, I guess if you think of surrender as being passive, it is just end everything, just give up, I'm done. And that's the only thing you do when you surrender. But that's not the case. So, first of all, as I mentioned, surrender is different than the word submit. But also, for Christians, the only one we're to surrender to is God, ourselves. We surrender ourselves to God and God alone. And that is going to color what I'm sharing with you today, a fresh look at surrender. Well, if my suggestion is correct, let's talk through then what might be, and I suggest what are, some of the activities that actually need to be included in surrender when we surrender to God. We just give ourselves totally to God. Now, there may be other places where we surrender in our lives, yes, but I'm talking about this type of surrender. First of all, when we ponder this idea, or when we're ready to surrender, when we actually surrender, the first thing we need to do is go to God with that, to talk to Him, to be in His presence. And as I said, even if we're surrendering in some other way, I give up this lawsuit, I give up my claim to something, I give up my bonus at work, such things. There's still a call. We still take that to God. So, when we're surrendering, go to God. And while we're in His presence, then the next thing we would do is review. In His presence, in God's presence, we want to review our lives. We're surrendering. What are we surrendering? So we review our lives. What's going on the outside? And I'll tell you, this is something that I've been doing. God called me a couple of months ago to step back. I didn't realize this connection until just this minute. He called me to step back, and I had no idea what that meant. And as I went to him, so there's the first step, go to God. All right, what is this surrender thing really about? What are you asking me to surrender? What is the motivation behind, or the purpose behind what you're calling me to? What's this option that I'm considering? Check out, review what's going on the outside of your life. For me, it was making a list of all of the activities I was involved in, all of the deadlines I was setting for myself, what my schedule was full of. And there was a long list. And I recognized pretty quickly, well, first of all, I asked God, wait a minute, are you telling me I need to literally cross out all these things? But that wasn't the case. However, slowly, I was backing off of different things. Certain things he told me right away. They were the smaller things. But then some deeper things came up, and I needed to step back from those as well. And while you're considering what's going on the outside in your life, really the interaction of that, or part of the evaluation of those things, is what's going on on the inside. So we review what's happening on the inside. In other words, I've got too much planned, and I have no energy at the end of the day. I know that. That's what's going on the inside. Okay, then. I know for sure I need to, what is the word? Cut back on activities in my life. Slow down. And there are some things that could happen that way very simply. There may be other things that may not be draining only physical energy, but they're also draining emotional energy. Or there's a whole collection of things that are draining the creative aspects of our lives. And before we know it, there's simply nothing left there. The batteries to be creative are completely drained. And if that's the case, it might mean if there's 4 or 5 creative demands being made on our lives, then what has to happen is some of those things need to be taken off the radar screen, so to speak. Or it could be that there are a lot of deadlines, and so there's a requirement to always be on tap, to be looking at the calendar every day for not only what's in that day, but what's coming up. And so the pressure to perform on time and time frames, on a tight timeline, can be what the problem is, what we need to consider before God. Remember, all of this coming to God is, and the review is in his presence, prayer, and so on. Now, also, once we've gone through those things, maybe made a list, considered some things, this I can keep this going, but this maybe not, I'm not sure. This is how my mind is reacting to these kinds of activities, these specific requirements, demands, and take those things. So the next activity, the review, outside and inside, the next activity of surrender is to ask God what his plans are, to go to him to sort out those things that you have now, in your mind or on paper or on your computer, listed, and the relevant pieces of that. Let's see what my notes say. Oh, yes. One of the ways that I have looked at that, and I still do actually, consider my day. What was the place where I was really frustrated? What in my week is the biggest frustration that I have? And at that time, when I considered it, because I noticed I was on edge quite a bit, my children were young, and I thought, what is making me short-tempered? What could this be? And I looked around. I was happy with the activities going on and so on, but something was irritating me. And then my
2, 3-year-old started whining, and my whole nervous system erupted. Like, aha, now I know what this is, because I have sensitive hearing, and her crying and whining when I couldn't figure out what was going on. She just would continue by my side while I was working in the kitchen, or any little interaction I tried didn't settle her. And so it went on and on. It felt like it was continual. I'm sure there were periods of that, and then other happiness, because I remember she was a really spontaneous little spark thing. But I remember that day I was standing at the kitchen sink, and all of a sudden there was the whining, and I went, aha, the Lord revealed it to me. That is the thing that is setting me off. That's the biggest thing that I need to work on right now. Then, once we go to the Lord, after the review, we ask him to point out what we really need to work on in the span of things, and he brings it to mind, then we ask again. Because we want to be able to respond in an appropriate way that's going to move us forward rather than fall behind. So, for example, obviously the short answers I was giving were not working. Now stop whining. I need to finish the dishes. Or I'll get to you when we, don't worry. And probably with a sharper tone in my voice, and maybe even getting to the place of, all right, that's enough now, stop. That whatever I was, all those little things did not solve the problem. And that's why the whining really became an ongoing issue, because her discomfort wasn't being met. Her need wasn't being met. So I went to the Lord. Okay, God, my past responses haven't been working. What's the fresh approach for this child? And the reason this is so important, once we ask God to show us, then go to him to find out how to respond, is because we want to be careful. We want to be thoughtful. It's not just enough to know what he wants us to address, but how he wants us to address it. I want to be careful. I want to be thoughtful. I wanted to meet my child's need and do it in the right way for her ease, but for my ease too. Yes, it was to calm what I was hearing that was irritating my nervous system, but it was also, and really primarily, so that she would be settled. Then both of our lives were going to be much better. All right, that's that step. Now, the next one is to follow through. Now we've gone to God to take an evaluation. He's shown us what to do, and we go to him to find out how he wants us to respond to that situation. We need to follow through on what he tells us. And I had to think it over. Actually, it took me probably 24 hours at least. What do I want to say? It's making me feel this way, jittery and so on, and over the top. I need to calm myself down first and think this through. I want her to be able to communicate, but I also want her to learn that whining and crying it hasn't gotten her anywhere already anyway. So how can I teach her the best way to manage what her needs are? She was not a particularly verbal child, and the whining was probably a way, and she would whine enough, finally somebody would turn to her and say, what is it you want? And she was probably learning not a good habit there. So what would be a good habit? The good habit would be to stop the crying. It's not really getting you anywhere, and use your words. She had her own little separate language. And so to practice what some of those words might be. And that's what I purposed to do. The first part was, you need to stop calmly, getting away from washing dishes or whatever I was doing, go over and lower myself to her level, look her in the eyes and say, now listen, I don't know what it is you need. It seems you need something. You need to stop crying. Take a breath, stop whining, and tell me what you need. And she was a little kid. Did that work right away? No, it didn't work right away. So after a couple of attempts, so to make sure she understood what she needed to do in order for me to help her, I took her to a little chair over in another room, so it wasn't quite so loud to my ears. Said, "All right, now you sit here until you have the crying done, and when the whining is over, you think about your words and come and tell me what you need." That took a few opportunities to let her know that she really did need to sit there. And all along, because I'd gone to the Lord for his response, and really I needed to calm me first, I never lost my temper with her. I took her right over and sat her down. "You need to stay here." And after, I don't remember how many times, she got it. "You come to me." And then, for both of us, I need to respond. I wanted her to know that when she used her words, I would meet her needs. And she came to me, asked for a drink or whatever it was, and I would meet that need. I would stop what I was doing, come down on her level. "What is it you need?" And even if she was sort of at first a little bit, "I want a drink." "Oh, you need a drink? Oh, that's good. Would you like some water? Would you like some apple juice?" Give her some options to calm down a little more and let her know it was really going to be pretty good, that she could get what she wanted. And both of us moved through that well. It doesn't do any good if we take a situation to God and ask him how to respond if we don't follow through. That's step number 3. And then number 4, okay, that upset, that piece of our life has now been calmed down, whether it means getting off of some committee meetings or letting a particular volunteer job you're doing go because the other people are not keeping up with what they're doing, and the demands are all falling on you to meet deadlines, and that's more than you can handle. Then that's what we need to do. But whatever it is, we respond. Now, the final piece is to stay close to God. We've drawn close to him throughout this whole time. This is what surrender is really like. 5 steps of surrender. Remain close to God. Because invariably, there's going to be more disruption in your life that you're going to need to pay attention to. Go to him. Ask him to help you sort it out and how to respond, and then follow through. And the more we practice that, the side benefit of these steps of surrender are that our will and our mind, our body and our spirits are really coming in line with God. And our closeness, our relationship with him is feeding into the overall surrender that he calls us to. "Come to me, all you who are weary and laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me." There's the practice sessions here of surrender. "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So there you go. Now you're all ready for the next round. Remember, I'm Sandra Allen Lovelace. Not only do I offer my materials here on Facebook, and then they'll be popping over to YouTube, but I also offer group coaching classes, one-on-one individual coaching. Come on in and learn how to be still and know. Know who you are, know who God is, know your purpose. Okay, that's all for today.
Happy Thursday at 3.